focus on hitting your goals in every area of your business. Remember, the universe rewards the bold. A leader has to take the risks.
So welcome to the Wealth on the Beach podcast. My name is Daniel Alonzo, and I am your host. This is episode number 53, and I'm so excited. You know, we're always talking about living a better life. I'm always looking for bringing the greatest minds, the greatest people with the greatest stories to you every single week. And this week we have a very special story about one man's journey and how he's made it through. And his name is Steve Tate. He's an author, father of 6, an amazing husband, and has been living just an incredible life and journey. And we want to know a little bit about how he got through some of the most difficult times that I can't even imagine. I mean, that anybody would ever be able to get through. And we're going to see how he did it. Hey, Steve, thanks for getting on, man. Hey, what does 20-month legend mean anyways?
So originally, I had this kind of thought process. I don't know if so much thought process is just a gut wrenching experience where I felt like I needed to write a book. The title of the book's The 20-Month Legend. The title of the book's The 20-Month Legend, and essentially what it does, it takes you through the entire life of my son, Hayes Tate. So to give you kind of a backstory, my wife and I, we were going for baby number 4, and we had 3 older ones. We said, this is it. We're going to call it good. And we got baby 4, 5, and 6. And so, it was one of those things where, needless to say, unexpected, life-altering. And, so the book essentially takes you through the day one of when we found out we were having triplets there in the doctor's office. And then, it essentially takes you through our whole journey, from the highs and the lows that we experienced with our son, Hayes Tate.
So give me a little bit about the backstory and tell us a little bit about Hayes. And you're going to tell us about all your kids, because all your kids are great. But there's a very very special message that I think that everybody needs to know, and we'd like to know who Hayes was.
We found out we were having triplets, and immediately they told us they heard 2 heartbeats. They couldn't hear the 3rd heartbeat, and so when you get the unexpected news you're experiencing triplet, or you're about to expect triplets, your thought process goes, well, I can handle 2, right? And the odds of them hearing that 3rd baby was less than 50-50. So they essentially gave us an appointment for 2 weeks to show up back at the doctor's office. Immediately we went home and told the kids. We said, we're pregnant. They knew we were pregnant, but we kind of told them that there's more than 1 in there. And then they guessed 2. We said, keep going. And then I think my son said, there's 3, and we had kind of warned them, hey, there are 3 right now, but 2 only are showing heartbeats. Well, fast forward to 2 weeks later, we found ourselves there in the hospital room getting an ultrasound, and baby number 3 had a live heartbeat, well and healthy. And so there we were experiencing triplets, and that baby number 3 happened to be Hayes. And Hayes was kind of the underdog. I felt extremely. Now I feel close to all my kids, but he was one. I just had this connection with Hayes. He was the last taken, so he was the youngest of the triplets, and immediately the last one taken out of the womb tends to lack developmentally, and actually, it's not all that uncommon. They're the last to come out of the NICU. They're the last to walk. They're the last to crawl. Well, Hayes was kind of the underdog. He was like, he was the fighter. Didn't have a ventilator. He came out, and immediately he just started thriving. And he continued on that path all the way, first to crawl, first to sit up, you name it. And then we got to the 9-month mark, and we noticed he started to kind of go backwards in his progress. And we thought it was just a virus. I mean, we went several times to doctors. They told us it was a virus. Our gut honestly was much more serious than that, but the doctors reassured us there were no issues. And but this prolonged for about a month of him just digressing. At one point, could hardly lift his head up. And we kind of just had this parental instinct to, hey, something's going on with Hayes. And he was lethargic. He was throwing up. And fortunately for us, we had 2 babies. We had his brother and sister to compare him to, and we kind of beat down the doctor's door and said, no, this is not a virus. And unfortunately, she turned us away and said it was a virus. And then we, on January 7th, 2016, we finally took matters into our own hands, and we went straight to the ER and said, hey, I think this is much more serious. And that's when we got the news, the devastating news that our son had a brain tumor, and it took up a third of his brain.
So, I mean, a message that I think you're probably wanting to let everybody know is sometimes doctors are wrong. Sometimes doctors, I mean, they're not superhuman beings. I mean, sometimes they make misdiagnosis, and they, maybe don't have the full answers for you every time. And sometimes you do have to take things into your own hands. And do you feel that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's certainly one of those. I feel like in this whole journey, I feel like certainly I've been an advocate for parents to push beyond what the doctors tell them. If they have a feeling that things are more serious than what the doctor's letting on, nobody knows their kids more than their parents. I mean, that's the gift of parenthood. You know more than the pediatrician. They can diagnose a certain thing, but ultimately you're around your child. You know the ins and outs. You know their habits. If there ever a point in your life where you have that situation, always get a second, get a third, get a fourth opinion. And if it still doesn't feel right, continue on that path to get the right results.
And so let's talk about, I want to kind of take a different path right now, just for a quick second, because I want everybody to get to know you.
Yeah. And
we're going to talk about some of the challenges that you went through, but I want to know a little bit about Steve Tate.
Yeah.
And know, what were you like growing up, man? What kind of kid were you?
I was kind of that determined. I mean, I was a sports jock. I mean, just everything, right? Everything sports that was my game. I was the high school quarterback, All-American quarterback in high school. I grew up playing every sport, any sport. Anything I could pick up in sports. I was naturally gifted. I was grounded. Despite being successful and having accolades out of high school, I had the same friend group from when I was in first grade. And it's funny, people get this misconception that these jocks, they hang out with other jocks, right? And it's all about, it wasn't that. I mean, I had to convince my friends in 7th grade to play football. They were kind of just more of the kids that probably the more cerebral, if you will, right? They were always the smart kids. I always wondered growing up, why they weren't in my class. Like now having my own kids, they tend to have kids in their class that are on the same level, right? To keep them interested and engaged. And it was funny growing up. I always looked at it and I said, I don't know why I don't have any classes with these kids. Well, sure enough, they were the smart kids, right? And I was kind of I was the leftover. So I hung out with those guys. It was fun. I mean, we were.
So were you a bad kid or a good kid?
No. I was like straight arrow kid.
Okay.
I was your kind of antithesis jock. I very much, I was grounded, hung out with my friends, same friend group forever. I mean, we caused your mischief, right? We did the old, toy papering and, a few incidences here and there. I mean, we had our fun, but, there was no mischief, right? There was no alcohol. We never got into that stuff. It was just like we were dudes hanging out, and it was funny. My friends would, needless to say, it was my friends, as far as the girl scene goes, they weren't necessarily part of the girl scene, but they knew I was. So they would always call, hey, Steve, bring your girls over. So I'd be bringing the girls over to hang out with them, and, you know, getting them out of their comfort zone to actually talk to girls and stuff. And so it was, you know, eventually, you know, we had a good group of friends, and we were just kind of good kids growing up in Salt Lake City, and it wasn't, you know, we lived a really safe environment, needless to say. So I grew up in very fortunate surroundings.
And so did you have a mentor that you look back? I mean, was there somebody that really stood out for you as being one of your first mentors?
That's a great question. You know, I actually grew up in an area in Salt Lake where, so it was on the East Bench, and our high school football team was top. You know, when I was a senior, we were 16th in the country, so we were dominant. But it was interesting. We were really small. All of us kind of shaved our heads. We had this program that, and our coach was named Coach Tate, and he was a guy. If you think of a football coach, you know, your typical movie, the guy with like a bald head, and he's swearing at you. This was like the exact opposite. This guy was meek, he was humble, never swore, never yelled, but he carried this presence about him. And you know, we're a bunch of 16, 17-year-old punk kids, but we bought into the system. And he ultimately never even he didn't have to hold the practices. I mean, it was just like all the kids were accountable because we didn't want to disappoint this guy. And, you know, for me, he was just like, he was a great example. I mean, I think he developed a football, you know, a craving inside me that I just did not want to fail him. And all the quarterbacks leading up to when I got to high school were all state quarterbacks. So there was this kind of pressure to like amount to what these guys were before me. And so I followed kind of a really good group of quarterbacks, and fortunately I was able to excel and earn the All-American accolades and play for a guy that I really respected. But I think, you know, I think he was probably a mentor for me. I mean, my dad is probably the easy one too. My brother I looked up to. He was older than me. I had a lot of, you know, fatherly figures around me, but I'd say from an impact, from a sports, you know, sports standpoint, I think my coach, Roger Tate.
So you married your high school sweetheart.
We did. Yeah. I know it sounds cliche, like something from My Girl, like Macaulay Culkin, right? Like that sounds like every time I say I married my high school sweetheart, that comes to mind. We actually met, I'm only furthering your point probably. We met in 5th grade, but we just hung out. We were friends, their group of friends. And I enjoyed the dating life for a long time. And she was always there kind of hanging out and with the boys and the guys. And finally our senior year, we're like, why don't we just finally start dating? So we started dating our senior year of high school, and it's great. I mean, we were best friends. So, I mean, we were best friends, and then that kind of helps, especially with what we've gone through. But it was, you know, our first date was, I laughed because our first date, I took her to a dollar movie, and then we bought a Slurpee, and it cost me like, total in and out the door was like $2.35. I was like, this girl's mine. I got to, you know, she's a keeper.
And she didn't complain, huh?
No, she didn't complain. That was it.
I love it.
Told me.
I love it. Yeah, you know, I did marry my high school sweetheart as well.
Okay.
So
yeah.
We've been together since we were juniors in high school, and so
That's
yeah,
great.
I totally can relate. We used
Yeah.
to go to Denny's,
Yeah.
and if you remember, $1.99 you could
Yeah.
get pancakes, sausage,
Yeah.
and hash browns and eggs
Grand
and everything.
Slam, right?
It was like $1.99.
Yeah.
So we would
Oh, yeah.
share that. We're not huge people, so we would literally share that. We would be out the door, and we'd both get waters, and we'd be out the door for like $2.80 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like crazy. So
Our kids have no idea about Denny's. They'll never know about the Denny's experience.
they don't even understand. All right. Hey, look, tell me a little bit about, I mean, well, first of all, I mean, 6 kids, okay?
Yeah.
6 kids is already, you know, most people, they go, wow, that's unbelievable. How do you stay organized having 6 kids, man?
If you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm not organized.
Okay. All right.
No. In fact, I was a type A. I mean, obviously, I think my personality, I was disciplined. I was, I determined. I was type A. I mean, everything was planned. I mean, my profession right now is I'm a financial planner. So everything's planned. And then the triplets came, and it was like, you literally have to just hold up your hands. I mean, actually, to be honest, when you have triplets, you have to be extremely organized when you're feeding them, because they all have to be fed and burped and changed at the same time. So it's a structure. It's like, I mean, it's a baby factory. So you wake, if one wakes up, you wake all of them up, and you can't feed them individually. Otherwise you'll be feeding for an hour and a half. So you've got to feed them all at the same time with propping them up or anything. So the act of raising the triplets in itself until like 2 years old was very OCD like, but then, the toddler stage hits, and it's just, I mean, crap everywhere. You name it. It's just, holes in the wall. And I finally and I think it was obviously with the triplets, but then furthermore with Hayes, I kind of got to that point where I had this way bigger perspective, and, something that would bother me back in the day of like a hole in the wall. And, to me, it's like, there are much bigger things in life right now to worry about. So I've probably done a complete 180 degree. In fact, there are times when my wife's like, "You're not the same dude I grew up with." I'm like, well, look, I mean, when you get 6 kids, you got to adjust somehow. So, but it's amazing. Being a father to me is, of anything I've accomplished in my life, whether it was my collegiate, football experience, or, my career, anything. I mean, nothing trumps being a dad.
And so tell me a little bit about, what were some of those struggles that you went through? Obviously having a child that was extremely sick. There were times where you were like, did you think about quitting? How hard did those struggles hit you emotionally? And what sort of things did you do to try to overcome them?
I think it's a mental grind. It's a mental roller coaster, and you've got to control your thoughts. You've got to cling to any hope. When you get the news that your son has brain cancer, you don't have to do much Googling to understand that the odds are definitely not in your favor. But, if you let yourself really focus on that and not the in the now, I look back, and had I not made that decision, I would have lost out on 20 beautiful months with my son, or I should say the 11 months after the diagnosis. And there were times when it was dark. It was really dark. There was times, absolutely, we wanted to quit. Really dark, where you didn't even want to get up out of bed. I had moments. I think my sports background helped me a little bit. I had Urban Meyer as a coach at the University of Utah, and there was one practice. I had returned home from a Mormon mission, and I was like 3 weeks at home, and it was a grind. I wanted to quit. And he took me aside for about 30 minutes. He kind of just laid into me a little bit, but gave me some harsh love, and kind of, he shared some personal experiences with him in his life. And ultimately, it was kind of that point forward. I was like, I can do this. And I think being able to do hard things was something I was immune to. Now, this is completely separate. This is above and beyond when you have your son that's battling for his life. But I think being able to mentally compartmentalize things and enjoy the moment, knowing that perhaps you might not get moments in the future like this. So I really learned to savor each day, and I learned to compartmentalize my thoughts, and to, when you've got something as serious as a brain tumor or cancer with your son, you're not going to get many happy days. And really those happy days are based on whether you can decide to be happy, or if you just let the darkness sink in. And fortunately, I had my days when they sunk in, but fortunately I just added up all those happy days, and, brought me to an extremely memorable 11 months with my son.
I love how you talk about compartmentalization, because that's a huge staple in what I talk to people about and I teach, because I think that so many people, they allow the dark times, the struggles, the challenges. Because look, you know, that's a major challenge. You went through a major challenge, but the truth is that you've been through other challenges in your life, and you're a young man,
Yeah.
so you're going to go through many more challenges in your life. And if we all don't decide to compartmentalize those challenges, because look, the truth is, if you would have sunk into a dark hole, you would have hurt the rest of your kids.
Yeah.
You know, pretty majorly. And did you think that you
Yeah.
did a good job trying to kind of like take care of what you got to take care of, and then at the same time,
Yeah,
take
I mean,
care of what you got to take care of?
They survived. You know, they're the ones that they kept me going. I mean,
Right.
I think if
Right.
Hayes was my only child, there'd be a lot of reason perhaps to feel sorry for myself. But I look at these 5 kids, you know, my 5 living kids now, and then, you know, if I've got to teach them, I mean, if I'm a leader at all worth my salt, and I'm teaching them to overcome things, but I myself am not overcoming it, right? Then I'm a hypocrite. And so, you know, they kept me alive. I mean, they kept me going. I mean, it's crazy because it's amazing what the human body can. You can have a broken heart, and you can deal with so much grief inside you, but yet be so happy and enjoy life at the same time. It's really weird. I mean, people look at me, I think, that follow me and probably say, how is this guy so cheerful when he's been through such devastating, a devastating experience with his son? And I think the answer to that is, it's both. I mean, I'm grieving. My heart's grieving. There's not a day or an hour that goes by that I don't miss my son, but it's also like, okay, I've got to enjoy this and make a life right now happy for him and for my other kids. You know, soon after, you know, so Hayes passed away at night, and 5 o'clock in the morning, his sister woke up, you know, like any toddler, just covered in throw up. I mean, this was 5 hours after Hayes, I just lost my son. And it was one of those moments where it's just like right there's a perfect example. I mean, she has no idea. I've got to care for her, and it was one of those things where I don't have time to sulk. I mean, I take my time, of course, you know, when I'm in my car, perhaps at night, but you know, you still gotta be dad. You gotta be dad and be a leader to kids.
I tell people that sometimes you just got to go in the closet, in a dark closet all by yourself, and just do what you got to do, you know. And if you got to mourn. There's nothing wrong with mourning. There's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with being sad. I mean, there are sad things that happen in life, but if that one sad thing wipes you out for everything else. I remember when my grandmother was passing away, and I remember visiting her at the hospital, and very, very sad. And this was kind of a period of my life when my business was doing really well. Our business was exploding. And I just remember that I compartmentalized that whole situation, and I would be, you know, I would go try to spend some time with her. If I wanted to cry or if I wanted to feel sad, I did, but I didn't allow it to infect the rest of my life. And so what I did was once I saw her, once I grieved, once I mourned, I then got focused on the things that I had to do. And so is there any truth to that? I mean, do you feel like you did a lot of that?
Oh yeah, no, I think absolutely. I was for really an entire year. I was juggling. So my wife stayed at the hospital with Hayes, 150 plus nights that he was there. I had the other 5 at home. So I'd wake up at 6, get the 2, his brother and sister, ready. They were screaming to be fed by 6:30. My oldest kids would wake up at 6:30, go to school. I had a 4-year-old at the time. I'd get him ready, and then I'd go to work. I'd go to work till 4. I still had to pay the bills. And then at 4, my wife and I, we'd switch places. I'd pull up in the valet parking. She'd come, switch me. I'd go up, see Hayes, and spend 4 hours with him a day. And that's get home at 11:30. That's what we did. I mean, it was just like, that's what we had to do. We had to do that to survive. And, I think, I think one of the, along your lines, I think one of the things that's perhaps unique, or perhaps, somewhat of my following consists of people that know it's okay to grieve. And I think that's important, especially guys, you know, and I think that's where maybe it's abnormal. People that follow me are like, here's this dude that's like up and down, right? I mean, guys aren't supposed to show your emotions. And I'm like, I'm the opposite. I'm like, you know what? Like, if you don't, something's wrong with you. If you're not, you know, if you're not emotionally attached and you're not grieving or you're not having these moments, either you're faking it on social media or you just don't want to admit it. I mean, because the truth is, if you don't have those moments, then something's wrong. And it's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be vulnerable. That's what I've noticed. It's okay to be vulnerable. We're in a society that we crave authenticity. And it's not very often you get authentic people. I mean, social media has perhaps taken away authenticity. And so if I can be a hope of authenticity for people, knowing that it's okay to cry and laugh and smile, but you know what? It's a cycle. There's always going to be down times. There's always going to be happy times, and you just got to learn to go through those and try to stabilize it a little bit.
So as far as financially speaking, I mean, was it a little bit rough financially at that time, or did things maintain pretty consistent?
Fortunately, fortunately for myself, I was able to afford everything. You know, I didn't have a time in which I couldn't have paid the bills, or, you know, there was never that. I had just made a career switch a year before. And so I had, for about 7 years, I was in the medical device field as a sales rep there, and I had made good money, and I was smart with my money. And then I had just bought my dad out in his financial practice. So I was buying him out, and fortunately from a financial standpoint, we were in a good spot, which is part of the reason why, you know, I was able to take one last vacation with my son and our family and share some incredible memories. And then that really ultimately led us to start a foundation and give back to people that don't have those. So, you know, financially, that was one area in which I didn't lack. That wasn't say, you know, we weren't living this lavish lifestyle, but we were able to pay our bills and go on vacation and have leftover and eventually start a foundation to help others as well.
So what do you think about passive income? You know, we talk on this podcast, we talk a lot about passive income and building residual income.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean to you when you hear
that's
that?
that's my field. So I'm a financial advisor, you know, and that's what, ultimately, that's why I got as a sales rep. I was a sales rep, and sales rep was great. It was, but it depended on the year. You could kill it one year, and then it was, you eat what you kill, and it was always just a chase. It's just a chase, constant chase. And I kind of, when I was in that world, I fast forward to what I wanted to do when I was 50 and 60, and I was like, I do not want to be a sales rep. So ultimately, that's what kind of directed me to this path. Was I decided, you know what, I want to help people with their finance. I want to create opportunities for them to be independent. I wouldn't say independently wealthy, because that's, I don't know, I think that's a misconception at times. But I think I want them to be able to live their current lifestyle throughout retirement, be happy. If they can live their current lifestyle through retirement, then I've done my job. And so, yeah, my world is all about residual income. You know, it creates an environment where you don't have to wake up every morning wondering what's going to be there and how it's going to come. You know, it's just creating that income stream. It allows you to have more enjoyable moments and spend time with your loved ones.
So when you went through that 11 months or, you know, with Hayes, was there anything you learned? I mean, is there any takeaway that maybe you can share with us on anything that you learned during that process? Even I want to know, like, did you learn anything about cancer? Did you learn anything about, you know, tumors? Did you learn anything about health that maybe you can share with our audience?
Oh gosh, you know, I mean, you got to trust the medical professionals. I think that they're there, you know, they have their experience, and you got to trust in them. And when it comes to treatment, you perhaps don't know better treatments than they do. But I would also, you know, I studied heavily in the alternative medicine approach, and it was hard because here I was, for lack of a better, I mean, I was this this well-known figure here in the state of Utah, and I didn't tell anyone at the time, but we were using an alternative approach with Hayes, medicinal marijuana, to help him through some of these treatments because of the pain that he was going through. He was on opioids. You know, he was on Oxycontin. He was on these things. He actually would have withdrawals after the hospital because he was in the hospital for every round was about 3.5 weeks. So he'd get home and we'd have to wean him off of opioids. And it was one of those things where I just sat back and said, there's got to be a better way to this. And as a parent, you're willing to try anything. And at the time, medicinal marijuana, now it just passed, and I feel like I was a big reason why it passed, but I was willing to do anything and everything it took. And so I went down and researched it myself and outweighed, kind of put down the pros and cons of utilizing this for Hayes. And it changed him. I mean, it helped him so much drastically. I mean, his complexion, his social interaction, his appetite, everything. It just benefited my son so much. I felt like, you know what, we need to have something like that available for these cancer patients. I mean, if it can increase their quality of life by 10%, why would we not do it? You do it for your kid, anyone to do it. So that was eye-opening for me. I also learned, how it was interesting. You kind of go through this crazy reality of these people. I mean, your wife and people all over the world, kind of for no other reason, just the fact that they care about an individual, my son, and people all over the world were caring and praying for my son. And it made me realize how good the world is. I think we always hear the bad, and I think every parent says, oh yeah, it's not like when we were growing up, we could roam the streets. Well, it actually is. There's a lot of truth that your kids can still roam the streets. Problem is, we don't allow them because we hear everything on the news, and we're so now preoccupied on what's going on in the news, and we hear all about the bad. And there's bad, but there was bad in the 70s and 80s as well. And I realized just how much good is in the world, that how many good people there are that care, that want to make a difference. And ultimately that's something that has changed me.
Isn't it reassuring to know that all the BS on TV is not 100% real?
Right.
A lot of it is so made up because, it's sensationalism. It's people, they love to hear the negative of the world. And that's what people, it's probably a human instinct,
right,
built in us that we, people like to see those things. And so, a lot of years ago, I decided to turn off the news. I mean, people tell me things and I'm like, I don't know. I hear things, here and there, but it's very rare that I'll ever sit down and watch a whole news broadcast or something. It's just almost never would happen. And I just think it's so important that people think about what they're putting inside of their minds, and because it really does affect your thinking.
Oh, it does. It absolutely does. It affects everything. It affects how you raise your kids at times. Yeah.
So, okay. So tell me a little bit about your foundation, man. And what good are you guys doing there, and why should people get aware of it?
So, you asked about us financially, and unbeknownst to us, I had promised so when we found out we were having triplets, I've never had a panic attack. I'm pretty cool cucumber under pressure. I've been through, my first game starting was at LSU in front of 95,000 people. I was barely 18 years old. And so I thrived in pressure. But nothing has made me have a panic attack, except when the night we found out we were having triplets, we saw an ad about Disneyland, and it set me off. It was like, we're never going to Disneyland. I can't afford it. No way. I've got 6 kids. I started adding, it was just dollar signs, just going. And oddly enough, this Disneyland theme became something throughout our 20 months. I then, randomly told the kids, hey, when Hayes gets better, we're going to Disneyland. And it was kind of one of those, we're going to go to Disneyland. We're going to do it. So, Hayes was in remission in September. I booked a trip for Disneyland, and we went in November, and it was amazing. We were able to book this trip, and unbeknownst to us, we thought Hayes was completely in remission. And then on the way home, on the drive home, he started showing signs that perhaps things were coming back, and he ended up passing away 3.5 weeks after this time of Disneyland. But as we were driving down to Disneyland, I thought how fortunate we are after having to pay these bills. I mean, these bills were not cheap. We're talking it was cost us more than $50,000, and so, and that's just, that's my experience. Some people have to take off work, or they have to take a leave of absence, and there could be 200,000 or 300,000. So it was one of those things I was like, I want to provide that for people. Furthermore, so Hayes was only 20 months, and Make-A-Wish does not allow kids from 0 to 3 to make a wish, because they just, yeah. And so, and I thought, I understand there's got to be some limitations or qualifications, but it kind of was like, hey, you know what? We should provide that. Why don't we fill that gap? So we started doing, that was our focus. We started the Hayes Tough Foundation to help these kids that are 0 to 3 get, fulfilled and get a dream. Well, we started the foundation, and then it took off. I mean, most foundations are not profitable, perhaps ever, but certainly within 5 years, if you look, it's 90% of them are not profitable. After a year and a half, my wife and I had raised over $500,000. I mean, just through social media, we did a couple events. And it was one of these things where, wow, we need to do way more than just this. So we kind of opened it up, and the Hayes Tough Foundation is aimed towards families that are affected by childhood cancer. And it can be anything from, we helped a girl get dental implants. She lost all her teeth. She's 16 years old. She had no teeth for an entire year because the chemo wiped her teeth out. So we immediately set it up. We paid for her to get dental implants. We paid for a boy who was battling severe anxiety and depression after chemo. Chemo totally wipes you out, and it affects not only physically but mentally. And so we gave his family a check for $5,000, and they bought a service dog for him. We've done, one of our focuses this year, we've paid for 4 or 5 different funeral expenses for, imagine yourself getting a bill for your child right after he passes away. Oh, and by the way, what people don't realize is if they assuming you want to be buried by your child when you pass away, you then have to buy your burial plots. So I was 33, almost 34 at the time, and I had to buy my burial plots. Something my parents, who are baby boomer generation, they hadn't even done. And then so what your bill would have been $5,000 all of a sudden jumped to $20,000. So we've jumped in as part of the Hayes Tough Foundation. We jump in to pay for funeral expenses, burial plots, things that people shouldn't have to pay for.
And so, is this being, and obviously the foundation is making a huge difference for a lot of families. How do we get more aware of it, and how can we give if we want to give? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That'd be great. You can go to haystough.org, and then that shows everything. That it kind of gives you the mission statement. It has a donate immediately now. One thing I really want people to, when you go and you donate to some of these foundations, take a look at the fine print in them. There's a lot of great organizations out there. There's also really a lot of bad organizations out there. There are some breast cancer foundations that have 80% overhead. So you donate $1, 80 cents of that is going to overhead. 20% is going to the people that are affected by cancer. We're 100%. So my wife and I, you spoke of income. I'm fine from my job. I don't need this. This is my way of keeping Hayes' legacy alive. So, everything that you give to the foundation goes to the kids. And what you can do is if you can't donate, we've talked about other ways you can help. Reaching out to your local hospital, volunteering to be with some of these kids. Some kids, when we were there at the hospital, it was the saddest thing. There was babies and kids that had to stay alone for hours because both parents worked. And you can volunteer to be one of those people that come in and play with the kids. Whether it's rallying for someone in your neighborhood, being aware. There's people right now there's several kids right now in your neighborhood that are affected by childhood cancer. Be aware of that. Anonymously buy them a dinner or give them a gift card. I mean, just being aware of your surroundings and understanding there's so many people out there that have it far worse than you. And if you realize that's when you start giving. When you realize how fortunate you are and how bad some people have it, that's when you have this ability, this desire to give back. And I think that's why I'm active on social media. I always want people to realize how different your life can change. And if I can give people that perspective and share our story, that's going to give people, more reason to give back. I mean, that's what I want. It's just leave a better, footprint in this world than when I came into it.
I've been donating platelets for probably, 25 years now, actually. And it's interesting that you're talking about the awareness. Cause I mean, literally I started donating because of a 90210 TV show. I swear to you.
Brandon sold it.
Yeah, didn't he sell it? He did.
Yeah.
He stole it.
Dylan Brandon, you can't say no to those.
And then I go to the city of Hope, and I walk in to the medical center, and I went through the wrong door or whatever, and it was the kids hospital. I walked into the kids. So, and I remember this. I mean, this is 25 years ago, and I'm emotional, and of course it just hit me in my heart. I mean, we don't even know what we don't even know. I mean, most of us have most of us have a nice life, and our kids are healthy and everything's good. And I mean, it just gives me the chills thinking about 25 years ago, me walking into this hospital and seeing all of these children that were, wearing masks and, no hair and and you're just thinking, I mean, life is good.
Yeah.
And so I've been donating for all these years. And of course we give a lot of money to different organizations and through the years. But for me personally, it touched me in a way that I don't think anything else has ever, touched me. So
it's amazing. I was in the medical device field, so I did that for 7 years, and I was doing pacemakers and defibrillators, and so I'd be in with physicians as they did the surgeries. And I remember walking through our local hospital, the Children's Hospital. That was one of my accounts, and it tore me up. It would, to the point where I had to finally tell my boss, like, I can't. Yeah, that account has to go somewhere else. I can't do it. I can't. I look at these kids, I'd look at their families, I'd be like, I don't know how they do it. And like that, I was that family. My son was that kid. I mean, and then your perspective changes entirely. And so, my hope is creating that moment for people. Create that moment so that they don't have to go through a children's hospital or hope to hell that they don't ever have to experience something like that with their kid. And if we can create that perspective, that's all I'm about.
Hey man, I tell you, we could have this conversation for a long, long time. I mean, this is just so important that people get aware. I think it's just awareness, being aware, like you said, of the kids in your community and just of different organizations that maybe you can help. And I love the fact that you're financially okay. You're probably financially independent to some degree where you're like, hey man, I can do this because I really want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And as far as, giving 100% back, that's a big deal. Cause I know a lot of these organizations do not give 100% back. So if anybody out there is going to donate and this cause seems something that's in your heart to give to, certainly this Hayes Tough should be an organization that you should really research and investigate, because if they're giving 100% back to the cause, that's huge, huge, huge. Hey, I want to end with something light and fun.
Yeah.
I want to get to know you, man. What's your favorite book, man? What's your favorite book?
Of course, it's the 20-month legend, right?
All right.
No,
that's a good answer.
It's so funny. I'm not a hefty reader. It's odd.
Okay.
I mean, here I wrote a book and I don't read a lot. But I'll tell you a book that, speaking of perspective, I'm a huge Pat Tillman guy because I played football and I'm a huge, obviously, patriot of the U.S. So Where Men Win Glory. That's a great book. Where Men Win Glory. It's about Pat Tillman and the entire experience that he went through.
Where Men Win Glory?
Yeah, Where Men Win Glory.
Glory. Okay. Awesome. I'm going to check that out. What's your favorite food, man? What's the food that you love?
Sushi. I mean, I could eat sushi all day.
I love sushi too. Ice cream or cake?
Ooh, frozen yogurt. Can I?
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
Frozen yogurt. Man. Favorite movie?
I mean, you can't. Oh golly, this one you got to categorize it. If you want to go like, let's go comedy. I could watch Old School all day.
Okay.
I'll tell you one that I love. It kind of is under the radar. Silver Linings Playbook.
Okay, that's a solid movie, man. Both of those are solid movies.
Yeah,
man.
good movie.
Do you have a morning routine? I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I get sworn at in toddler gibberish by my kids, and then I get up and I go run a couple miles.
Okay, good. How about a nightly routine?
I put the kids to bed and I watch The Bachelor.
Oh, I did see that. I heard you love The Bachelor, man.
That's I don't know if I love it or it's like driving by a car accident and you don't want to look, but you kind of have to look. Everyone slows down. That's what The Bachelor is for me. And I'll do, Big Brother. I'm a big reality TV guy. I don't know why, but that's my thing, my jam.
Well, yeah. Hey, look, I mean, the movie producers have not been wrong because reality TV, and then now with social media, we're all reality TV stars in some. Yeah, the whole world is reality TV show now. So. But hey, man, this has been so insightful. Thank you so much. We can follow you on where?
Follow me on Twitter or on Twitter and or on Instagram. Mostly Instagram's at Tate28. That's where you'll find me. And you'll see my chaotic life with my kids, and I love it. It's a lot of fun. I love to interact with them. I mean, that's my main thing: interacting with people and getting to know people as well.
It's awesome, man. You got an amazing story. Thank you for all that you're doing to make this world a better place. This world needs more great people like you, Steve. So thank you so much, man. We appreciate you. As always, everybody, make sure that you follow us on Instagram. Share this podcast with anybody that wants to grow their life, grow their mind, and ultimately grow their money. Nothing wrong with that. Let's talk. Let's keep talking. Let's keep the message about passive income and residual income alive because, look, when you get financially independent, there's so many options, more options that you have to keep your family safe. So make sure you get a plan, keep your family safe financially, and give yourself more options for the future. And look, as always, make sure that you dream bigger than ever. But also keep in mind that you have to do it now. God bless you. Have a great, wonderful day. We'll see you at the top.